What if the most powerful thing you could ever say was nothing at all? Not a single word, no text, no call, just quiet. Now wait, imagine this. You're always the one showing up. You're the one who replies fast. You're the one making the plans. You're the one trying, always trying. You tell her how you feel. You try to explain everything. You think, if I just say the right words, she'll understand, she'll care, she'll stay. But she doesn't. She pulls away. She gets distant. And deep inside, it hurts. You think, maybe I'm not good enough. You ask yourself, what else can I do? What did I do wrong? But here's the twist most men never see coming. You didn't do anything wrong. You just did too much. You were always there. And when you're always there, she forgets how rare you are. Now let me tell you a secret. A man who can disappear in silence is the kind of man she remembers forever. He doesn't storm out. He doesn't cry or beg. He just stops trying. He chooses peace. He chooses calm. He chooses himself. And in that quiet moment, that space where your voice used to be, she starts to feel something. She starts to wonder, why did he stop texting? Why do I miss his voice? Where is he now? Is he moving on? You see, silence has power. Because silence isn't empty. Silence is full of answers. When a man can walk away without drama, without shouting, without needing to explain, it shows something rare. It shows he values himself more than attention. It shows he doesn't need to chase. It shows he's not a boy begging for love. He's a man who creates it inside himself. And that's when she respects you. Not when you speak more. Not when you try harder. But when you stop needing to be heard and start listening to your own peace. So now you have a choice. Do you keep chasing someone who doesn't see your worth? Or do you become the man who can vanish with grace and let your silence speak for you? Because silence doesn't mean weakness. It means you've grown strong enough to walk away with your head high. The man who stops explaining starts winning. Have you ever felt like no matter what you say, it's never enough? You text her long messages. You try to explain how much you care. You try to fix things with more words. But still, she pulls away. And it kills you inside, doesn't it? You wonder, why isn't she listening? I'm being honest. I'm trying my best. But let me ask you something powerful. What if explaining yourself actually makes you look weak? Yeah, let that sink in. When you explain and explain and explain, you start chasing approval. You start begging to be understood. You start needing her to say, "You're right." But guess what? A Stoic man doesn't explain himself over and over. He doesn't plead for understanding. He observes. He adjusts. And then he goes quiet. Because he knows this truth. If someone wants to understand you, they will. If she values you, she'll see your effort without you shouting it. A real man doesn't argue his value. He walks in it. He doesn't need to defend every choice. He stands by it. And you know what happens when you stop explaining? You become mysterious. You become strong. You become the one she can't read. And that makes her want to understand you even more. That's when the roles shift. That's when she starts leaning in. She starts watching you closely. She starts feeling your silence like thunder. Because silence isn't quiet when it comes from a man with self-control. It's loud. It's powerful. It makes her feel your absence in her chest. So the next time you feel the urge to explain, pause. Breathe. Choose silence. Let her wonder. Let her question. Let her meet the version of you that doesn't need her to get it. Because the man who doesn't explain himself, he's the man who's already won. The power of space. Why going silent speaks louder than words. Have you ever tried to fix something by doing more, but only made it worse? You sent another text. You tried to make her laugh. You even called just to check in. But she grew colder, quieter, and harder to reach. It's confusing, right? You're trying to show care. So why does she seem to care less? Here's the hidden truth no one told you. Women don't fall for the guy who fills the space. They fall for the one who creates it. When you're always available, always around, always chasing, she doesn't feel pulled in, she feels pushed away. But when you go silent, when you create space, when you disappear without drama, something strange starts to happen. She notices the quiet. She feels the emptiness. She starts to wonder, where did he go? What is he doing? Why do I miss him? See, attraction isn't built when you're in her face. It grows when she has to feel your absence. It grows when she realizes you're not waiting. You're living. You're building. You're focused. You're not trying to keep her. You're becoming a man she'd hate to lose. And that, my friend, is powerful. Space makes her curious. Silence makes her search. Distance makes her decide if she really values you. But here's the best part. You don't need to do anything fake or tricky. You just need to choose your own life over trying to manage hers. So don't text first. Don't ask what's wrong. Don't chase answers. Let space do the talking. Let silence raise the volume. Let her feel the weight of your missing presence. Because when a man disappears with purpose, his shadow grows larger than his words ever could. The man who doesn't chase creates mystery. Why do people chase things? Think about it. We only chase what's running away, right? So when a woman knows you're always right there, always calling, always trying to fix things, you stop being a mystery. You become predictable. And you know what's not attractive? Predictable. Now here's the wild twist. When you stop chasing, you become interesting. She starts asking questions in her mind. Why is he so calm? Why isn't he trying so hard? Does he even need me like I thought? Suddenly the guy she thought she could always have feels rare, feels different, feels valuable. This is what most men never understand. When you're chasing, she's running. But when you stand still and just focus on your life, she turns around. It's not about being mean. It's not about playing games. It's about showing that your world is full, even without her in it. That's what makes her curious. That's what makes her rethink things. That's what pulls her back in. Not your words, but your silence. Think about this. Does the lion run after every animal? Number it watches. It waits. It chooses. And because it's patient, it stays powerful. So if she's hot and cold, if she's giving mixed signals, don't explain. Don't panic. Don't chase. Let her wonder. Let her miss you. Let her come to you. Because mystery isn't something you say. It's something you are. Because when you leave, you teach her something. Here's a crazy truth. You don't always need to talk to teach. Sometimes your silence is the loudest lesson. When a woman sees that you can walk away quietly, with no drama, no yelling, no begging, she feels something she's never felt before. Respect. Not fear, not confusion, just respect. Because most guys, they stay too long. They explain too much. They try to prove how good they are. But when a man chooses to leave with calm, not chaos, he shows strength without saying a word. She begins to wonder, did I mess this up? Why isn't he fighting like the others did? Why do I feel his absence more than I felt his presence? That's powerful. You didn't need to argue. You didn't need to prove your worth. Your silence did it for you. And guess what? She'll remember that. More than your gifts, more than your calls, more than your words. Because real impact doesn't always come from noise. It comes from presence and the power to remove it. So the next time she's treating you like an option, or you feel like you're being tested, don't speak too fast. Pause. Breathe. Step back. Your calm exit will do what no long speech ever could. Now ask yourself this. What happens when your life becomes so strong that you don't fear walking away anymore? You become rare when you're hard to read. Have you ever noticed this? The people who are quiet, calm, and don't explain every little thing, they feel mysterious. They make you wonder. They make you think. Now here's the secret. Mystery pulls people in, not games, not fake silence, but real stillness, real calm. When a man doesn't always explain himself, when he doesn't chase, panic, or overshare, he becomes rare. Most guys are loud. They always talk about their feelings. They explain why they're hurt. They ask for attention when they don't get it. But the man who just watches, learns, and adjusts quietly, he's different. Women notice that. They start thinking, why is he not reacting? Is he okay? Did he move on without saying a word? That curiosity, that wondering, is where respect begins. because she knows he doesn't need her to understand him. He understands himself. And that kind of man, he's not easy to find. He's not easy to replace. So when you stop explaining and start living, you send a silent message. I know who I am. I don't owe anyone my peace. And that makes you unforgettable. If she can feel you gone, she'll know you were valuable. Let's ask something real. What happens when you go silent and she doesn't feel anything? That's a tough truth. But here's the gold. When your silence feels heavy, she remembers you. Not because you made noise, but because your absence speaks louder than words. Now think about this. Have you ever walked out of a room and nobody even noticed? It hurts, right? But what if you leave and suddenly the air feels colder? Things feel quieter. Something feels missing. That's presence. And only the man with value can leave silence that loud. You don't get that kind of power by begging, or chasing, or explaining. You get it by being, by living with purpose, by showing that your time is not free, by making your energy rare. So when she feels your absence, it hits deep. She starts thinking about your calm, your peace, your strength. She realizes, he didn't leave to hurt me. He left because he matters. And that kind of man doesn't beg to be seen. He disappears and still shines. So ask yourself, what would happen if you disappeared and she finally realized what she lost? When you stop explaining, she starts questioning. Here's something strange, but powerful. The more you explain yourself, the less she listens. Crazy, right? You think you're helping her understand, but really, you're giving too much. Too many words, too many feelings, too much you. And guess what? She doesn't respect the man who always explains. She respects the man who knows what he's doing and just does it. Now let's say she says something cold. She pulls away a little. Your chest gets tight. You want to ask, what's wrong? Did I do something? But wait. What if you said nothing? What if you simply watched, waited, and then made your next move? In silence? That's not weakness. That's power. That's a man who observes and adjusts. See, a woman will test your emotions, not to break you, but to see if you'll break. And when you don't react, when you stay calm, quiet, and grounded, she starts to wonder, why isn't he chasing? Why isn't he reacting? Now she's the one questioning. Now she's the one trying to figure you out. Silence flips the game. It shifts the power, not by force, not by tricks, but by choosing peace over panic. But your silence says what words never could. Let's try something wild today. What if your words were actually weakening your power? Sounds strange, doesn't it? But think about it. When you tell her everything, when you explain your every move, when you keep proving who you are with words, she doesn't feel mystery. She doesn't feel tension. She doesn't feel the pull. She just feels done, like she already has you all figured out. But here's the truth. Real men don't speak to be heard. They speak when it matters. And the rest of the time, they use silence, not to punish, not to play games, but because peace needs no noise. Silence is strong. Silence is calm. Silence is confident. She may not always understand your silence, but that's exactly why it gets to her. She starts thinking, is he upset? Did I go too far? Why isn't he reacting like other guys? And just like that, you shift the energy. You make her look inward. You create curiosity, all without saying a word. That's not cold. That's control. So let me ask you this. What if your silence is the loudest message she'll ever hear? When you walk away quietly, she finally looks for you. Here's a thought that might shake you. The moment you leave, without noise, without anger, without begging, is the moment she finally feels your worth. Not because you slammed the door, not because you gave a long speech, but because you vanished with peace. You didn't explain. You didn't fight. You didn't chase. You just walked away, like a man who has better things to do than play maybe games. That moment, it hits her differently, because it's not what she's used to. Most men argue. Most men cry. Most men stay too long, hoping she'll change. But you didn't. You stayed calm. You stayed still. Then you chose yourself in silence. That kind of move, it's rare. It's powerful. It's unforgettable. It makes her wonder, wait, did I lose something real? And the answer, yes. She lost a man with strength, a man with purpose, a man who didn't need to say anything, because his absence said everything. So here's how it all ends, my friend. You don't win by yelling louder. You win by living quieter and better. When you choose silence with calm power, when you walk without warning, not to hurt her, but to protect your peace, you become unforgettable. And whether she comes back or not, you win, because you stayed true to your path. And that, brother, is what Stoic power really is.